Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Barbara Caboot from the Department of Health in the Division of Tobacco Prevention and Control. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us for the annual Synar training. We hold this training every year to conduct the Synar survey, and we really appreciate all of your effort and your participation. It's really critical that we have this survey completed every year to give us an idea of tobacco sales to minors rate in Pennsylvania. So today you'll be hearing from a number of us that work on this survey every year to make sure that it's implemented and it's a sound survey to give us the data that's required. Actually a SAMHSA requirement, a federal requirement that all states do every year. And your role is very critical to help us get this accomplished. So again, we thank you for your time. The staff individuals at the Department of Health that will be responsible for making sure the Synar is administered this year is myself and Vita King, who's also in the Division of Tobacco Prevention and Control, and your partners from the Division of Health Informatics, also with the Department of Health, will be Steve Muccioli and Nathaniel Tinnick. You'll be hearing from them today to go over the process of the survey, and we can answer any questions that you have regarding the survey, which starts July 1st and runs until about mid-August. So it's that's usually the time frame we hold it every year. So we can go to your second slide, and I'll pass it on to Steve Muccioli to start going over the resources for Synar.
Hi, it's Steve Muccioli, and I'm going to talk about Synar resources. And we should be on slide 3. Okay, let me begin with an overview of the resources available on the Synar website. To reach the site, you would type in www.health.pa.gov and then select health statistics under the I'm looking for header. It's in the top right of the page. And then you'd select behavioral risk and injury statistics under health statistics in the middle of the page, and then select Synar survey. Next slide. On the Synar page, you'll find an overview of the survey, past reports, an interactive tool to compare historical results, a link to the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Block Grant website, Synar coverage reports, the latest instruction manual, details on electronic collection form, information on survey design, and the PowerPoint agenda and webinar for the most recent and current training. There's also a link to the SAMHSA main Synar page, the SAMHSA reports page, and the tobacco's programs quitting tobacco page. And just one note, I just was telling Barb that the 2018 report is finished, but we're still waiting on approval to post it on the website. So hopefully we can get that out there soon. You can turn to the next slide 5. Synar history. Most of what you hear today will be read scripts. It'll sound like we're reading because we are reading from. We want to make sure all information is provided and it's consistent. And we'll begin with a brief history of Synar while referring to pages 1 through 4 of the manual. The survey is named after former Congressman Mike Synar of Oklahoma, who sponsored an amendment requiring random, unannounced inspections of outlets selling tobacco. The inspections are meant to assess the effectiveness of the state's enforcement program by measuring the rate that outlets sell cigarettes to minors. The survey is required by the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Block Grant. According to the grant, Pennsylvania is required to annually report the survey results along with descriptions of the design, methodology, sampling frame, inspection protocol, ineligible outlets, and youth inspector characteristics. The report also contains responses to questions about youth access laws, youth activities, enforcement, and future plans to reduce youth access to tobacco. We submit the report to the Center for Substance Abuse Prevention, also known as CSAP. CSAP is part of SAMHSA. You can obtain the latest report by visiting our Synar website and clicking on the SAP block grant link and follow instructions to get to the annual Synar report. CSAP created many specific requirements on how the survey can be designed, conducted, and analyzed, such as a sampling frame with a minimum of 80% coverage, a standard error less than or equal to 1.82, and a completion rate of 90% or more. Failure to meet any of CSAP's requirements can result in severe penalties. Refer to pages 1 and 2 of the manual for more information on the CSAP requirements. Our survey is achieved through the combined effort of 4 different state bureaus, private contractors, and youth from across the state. The first Synar survey was conducted in Pennsylvania in 1996, and it resulted in a 32 to 68% violation rate. Next slide, 6. The 2018 violation rate was estimated between 7 and 11%. This rate was significantly lower than the federal target of 20%. It might be beneficial to review some basic statistic methods and tools to look at survey results, which leads us to our next topic, understanding survey results. I'm going to turn it over to Nathaniel. And we're moving on to slide 7.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Tinnick. You'll probably be hearing from me a lot this summer during the survey. I'm in charge of the data collection and analysis. So the next topic is understanding survey results on slide 7. To understand survey results, you should be aware of the survey design, survey limitations, and understand some common analysis methods. All surveys have limitations. According to the Synar design, the results can only be applied to 2 geographical levels, statewide and stratum. Single-year, county-level estimates are not valid and not available, with the exception of Allegheny, Delaware, Erie, and Philadelphia, if and only if the completed sample is large enough. There is a common misconception that the data collected in a county can be used to obtain a rough estimate of the county's violation rate. This is not true for a clustered survey. The purpose of any survey is to gather information from a small sample and make a statement about a large group known as the population. The Synar survey uses a small, specially designed sample of outlets to make a statement about all outlets in Pennsylvania that sell cigarettes and are accessible to minors. The actual percent obtained from the small sample survey is meaningless on its own. It only describes the outlets selected in the sample. How that percent relates to the large group or population is what we need to know. Making a statement about the population using a sample is called statistical inference. The statistical inference technique we use is the 95% confidence interval, which uses the survey error and the percentage calculated during the survey. The statement is that the sampling procedure used had a 95% chance of producing a set of confidence limits that encloses the rate that all outlets sold cigarettes to minors. The survey percent describes only the outlets in the sample, while the confidence interval describes the entire population. Therefore, you should provide the confidence interval every time you present the survey results. In addition to making an inference about a population, the confidence interval can be used to compare 2 estimates. For example, if you want to know whether the 2008 estimate is different than the 2007 estimate, a simple way is to determine how much overlap there is between their confidence intervals. The rule of thumb for an estimate comparison is, if they overlap more than 29%, it is reasonable to assume that the two results are not significantly different. If they overlap 29% or less, they may or they may not be significantly different. Further significant tests are required. If they don't overlap at all, then it is reasonable to assume that the two results are significantly different. The 2008 survey rate was 5%, and the 2007 rate was 7%. At first glance, you might be tempted to say that the 2008 rate is lower than the 2007 rate, but that is not true. Keep in mind that these are survey percents, not inferences about the population, and the survey error must be considered when you make any conclusions about the results. The 2008 interval was 4 to 7%, and the 2007 interval was 5 to 9%. Using the confidence interval overlap technique, we see that 40% of the intervals overlap, which is more than our 29% cutoff. Therefore, the 2008 result is not different than the 2007 result, and we cannot say that it is higher or lower because there is no significant difference. Hopefully this gives you a better understanding of how to interpret the results. Next, Barb will provide more information regarding the survey planning and training.
We're currently on slide 8. I'll be going over some of the survey planning and how all of you can be prepared to plan for your completion of the Synar survey in your areas. In the instruction manual, you will find this information on pages 5 through 8. And you'll be receiving in the next couple of weeks a survey sample sent out to all regional primary contractors. It's a sample of outlets in your areas that will be part of the Synar survey. And when you receive that sample of retail locations, you can take a look at what's in your area and complete some mapping and kind of coordinate the order and how you'll complete the surveys at those locations. You can locate outlets on street maps, maybe use some online mapping tools. If you need some assistance, we could help, but there's a lot of other ways you can identify your survey teams and designate who will be conducting the surveys at what locations. As I mentioned, the schedule of this year's survey will be July 1 through about August 16th. We're looking to have everything completed by that date. And we'll be tracking your completion of the surveys at the various locations in your regions. We'll send a spreadsheet out to you that you can complete on a weekly basis and send back to us just so we can have an idea of this progress we're making for Synar each year to make sure we're on target with completing the outlets by the end of the time period. Next slide, 9. So the requirements that you'll need to ensure are in place for the Synar survey are a couple of requirements to make sure you have adults that are able to participate and conduct the survey for us. We would like them to be a non-tobacco user. They must have a valid photo ID. They must complete their state police background checks and their child abuse history clearance forms, since they will be working with minors. And we suggest that 2 is the ideal number. It's useful to have a designated driver and also an adult witness or someone to collect the data for each survey. And you'll also be receiving forms with exactly what data to collect. Next slide, 10. The requirements for the youth that will be participating in the Synar survey will also be a non-tobacco user. The age for the survey, for the Synar survey youth, will be 15 to 16 years of age. I know these ages vary with our other enforcement and programs, but for Synar it's age 15 to 16. And we make a note of that because a disproportionate use of age will bias our survey. It's important that we follow that guideline. They would have a valid photo ID. A school ID is acceptable as long as their date of birth is on there. We try to encourage you to use an equal number of male and female youth, and it's important that you try to match them to the characteristics of the neighborhood in which you'll be visiting. Next slide, 11. And to conduct a valid survey, we never solicit. We're not trying to buy tobacco products. We're just trying to document what actually happens when the youth makes an attempt to purchase. So it's an unannounced survey, unlike maybe FDA or Act 112, where a citation is issued or you're announcing that you're there for that purpose. Synar is unannounced, so it could be a sound survey. We really encourage you to follow all the procedures that are set forth in this training and the manual to make sure we have a standardized process. It's very important that we have that for a sound survey, and we also want to aim for a high survey response rate. So the primary goals and projects that the regional primary contractors will be responsible for will be recruiting the youth and the adult volunteers in your region. Some of you may know others that conduct Act 112 or FDA checks that can help with this, but please let us know if you have any trouble recruiting, and we would be able to work with you. Provide the training by showing the recording of this presentation to anyone who isn't able to join us today to make sure they have the same information as everyone else, and then coordinate implementing and completing the survey on time. And now I'll pass it back to Nathaniel for some procedural information.
Okay, we're on slide 12. Pages 9 through 14 of the manual details the survey procedures. Our goal is to conduct a valid survey. To prevent inaccurate results, you should follow a few simple rules. One is to keep the survey a secret. The survey should be okay.
Oh,
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you, but there's music on there.
Hi. Did someone put their phone on mute?
Someone probably put their phone on hold. Hold is what causes
You know,
that.
I'll try and mute everyone so we won't hear their phone. Give me 1 second, please. Just saw this.
That's-
Okay, is that it? Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, let's continue. Rule number 1 is to keep the survey a secret. The survey should be unannounced. 2 is to be consistent with your surveying. Follow the same procedures for every attempt. 3, rigorously complete every sampled outlet and every form correctly and completely. 4, remain impartial to the outcome. Do not try to influence the outcome of the inspection. 5 is be patient. Surveys rely on many different people with many different personalities. Unexpected delays should be expected. And finally, be tenacious. Don't quit until all eligible outlets on the list are inspected. Next slide. Prior to the inspection, the adult supervisor should park the vehicle out of sight, evaluate the safety and eligibility of the outlet from the outside, and determine whether it is feasible to enter the outlet first. Prior to the inspection, the youth buyer should decide which brand of cigarettes to ask for, decide on a backup brand, and make sure they have more than enough money to make the purchase. The adult supervisor should enter the outlet a minute or so before the minor if the adult believes it won't alert the clerk that a check is in progress. The adult will evaluate for safety, locate warning signs, observe the gender of the clerk, determine if outlet sells alcohol, and determine if cigarettes are sold in the bar area if the outlet is a bar. When it isn't possible for the adult to enter first, the youth will perform the previously mentioned tasks and then attempt to purchase cigarettes. After the inspection, the adult and youth complete the collection form worksheet and discuss any issues they encountered during the inspection. There are some general procedures to keep in mind. Inspect the outlet at the sampled address regardless of the name. Say, for example, if you arrive at the address and the location information on the worksheet says that it's a Giant Eagle Get-Go, but there's a Sheetz in operation there, you must still make an attempt. This is an unannounced survey. Don't talk about the survey outside of your survey team. Remind the youth buyer to act naturally and to be confident. The buyer should practice asking for cigarettes prior to the survey. Give the buyer a basic script to follow when they attempt to make a purchase. The same script should be followed throughout the state. Prior to the survey, the buyer should know which brand they want to purchase along with a backup brand. Sometimes the clerk will ask the type of cigarettes they want. Therefore, the buyer needs to know the various types, such as lights, regulars, menthols. Make sure the buyer can pronounce the brand names correctly. If the clerk asks the buyer's age, the buyer should answer honestly. Slide 14. The buyers do not take their ID into the outlet. Make only one attempt per outlet. The buyer will not argue with the clerk. Remember, a successful inspection is not making a purchase or enticing a sale. Success is documenting what actually happens. Do not trick the clerk into selling. The outcome must reflect what a clerk would normally do when asked for tobacco by a minor. Youth and adults do not wear uniforms or visible forms of identification. Do not use identifiable official vehicles. And an adult on each survey team should carry the letter of verification proving the legitimacy of the survey activities. There are also a few safety issues to keep in mind. Remember, both the driver and all passengers must wear seat belts. The adult should be prepared for any emergency. Review the protocol for handling an emergency medical situation in which a survey participant is injured during survey activities. For example, know in advance the phone numbers of individuals to contact in case of an emergency. If a clerk becomes verbally abusive, the buyer should simply leave. And finally, if the outlet appears dangerous, do not take a chance. Next, Steve will talk about non-completions on slide 15.
Okay, a non-completion is defined as an outcome that does not result in a sale or a refusal. Non-completions are described in great detail in Appendix 2. When a check or inspection cannot be completed, it is very important to classify it correctly. There are 14 non-completion categories, but you can only select one per outlet. First, we're going to talk about bars and taverns. Even though bars and taverns may not be appropriate places for teens, some are accessible to youth and sell cigarettes. Therefore, bars and taverns are included in the survey. The non-completion categories that deal with bars and tavern are B&A, bar not accessible, CBB, cigarettes behind bar. When visiting a bar, check the outside of the bar for signs prohibiting minors from entering. If a sign is found, the bar should not be entered. Complete the electronic collection form and worksheet as bar not accessible. Surveyors are required to write the exact wording of the sign in the notes section of the electronic collection form and collection form worksheet. If you take a picture of the sign, mention that in the notes section, but exact wording must still be in the notes section. If you do not find a sign, check for a bouncer. If this is the case, do not enter the bar and mark the non-completion as B&A and write bouncer in the notes section. This is not a refusal, it is a non-completion. If you encounter a bar without a sign or bouncer, the adult should enter the bar and determine where the cigarettes are sold. If they are sold behind the bar counter, leave the outlet and categorize this non-completion as CBB, cigarettes behind bar. With CBB, we require you to write in the notes section that the adult entered. Finally, if a sign or a bouncer isn't found and cigarettes are not sold behind the bar, the outlet must be attempted unless it is deemed too dangerous. If an outlet is too dangerous, don't let the youth enter. When deciding how to classify a dangerous outlet, Do not automatically place it in the ODG outlet dangerous category. Make sure it cannot be placed in any other category because CSAP does not accept outlet dangerous as a valid non-completion. Only use outlet dangerous as a last resort. If you have inspected the outlet for enforcement within the last 12 months and found that it is inaccessible according to Synar non-completion category rules, you can mark the outlet as a non-completion. You must indicate the date when the enforcement check was completed and provide a full explanation in the notes section of the electronic collection form and collection form worksheet. Keep in mind, if it was a BNA with the sign during the enforcement check, you must put the wording of the sign in the notes. Slide 16. Next, I'll go through some scenarios. Suppose you come to the address pictured on slide 16. There's a for rent sign in the window and you look in to see nothing in the building. How would you complete the electronic collection form and collection form worksheet? Next slide, 17. Since this will be a non-completion, questions 1, 2, 3 in the notes section must be completed on the electronic form and the worksheet. Question 1, outcome is marked non-completion. Question 3, non-completion type is marked EMP, empty building. Question 2, outlet type is marked EMP, LOT, PVR, UNL because the type of non-completion is EMP. Do not try to guess what the outlet was before it was empty. And the notes should say something like you see on slide 17. What if the building at the address was torn down? Question 1 is a non-completion. Question 3 is LOT, empty lot. Question 2 is EMP, LOT, PVR, UNL. And the note should say something like, found the address and the building was torn down, leaving an empty lot. Suppose you couldn't find the outlet or the address given doesn't give enough information. Use all resources to try and find the outlet. If everything fails, mark it as a non-completion, unlocatable type. Explain the steps you took to find the outlet in the notes section. Make sure you exhaust all your resources such as GPS, personal knowledge of the area, and extensive internet searches. Next slide, 18. Now suppose you arrive at a concert venue. How would you complete the electronic collection form in the collection form worksheet? Next slide, 19. If money is required to enter prior to purchasing cigarettes, this is a non-completion. If you can buy cigarettes before paying money to enter, then you treat it like any other outlet and attempt to purchase. In our example, the cigarettes are within the concert venue and you can't get to the vendor without paying first. Therefore, question 1 is a non-completion. Question 3 is ONA, other not accessible. Question 2 is other with the note concert venue. And the note should say something like the cigarettes are sold in the concert venue. No cigarette pre-security nor pre-entry. You will find this situation in places like sports arenas, amusement parks, racetracks, airports, stadiums, and zoos. Next slide, 20. What if you come to an outlet that we will call Bob's Cafe? You see a close sign. Furthermore, you read the times that Bob's Cafe is usually open are Monday through Thursday, 9 to midnight, and Friday and Saturday, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. What type of non-completion is this? Next slide, 21. This is an OCN, outlet closed, not accessible. Because the outlet hours are outside our survey hours, the survey, which are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and the survey runs July 1st to August 16th. If the outlet isn't accessible within these time frames, use OCN. If there are two or more outlets with the same address and they are not part of a mall or shopping complex, choose one form to complete as a completion and mark all others as duplicate. Put the area and sample numbers of all duplicates in the notes section of the other duplicate electronic collection form in the other collection form worksheet. If cigarettes are sold from a mobile vendor, mark it as ITV or itinerant vendor. If the outlet is a private club that is not accessible to the general public, mark it as a PCL or private club. And finally, if there is a private home at the address, mark it as PVR or private residence. Next, we're going to talk about what happens when you have too many non-completions. Slide 22.
Each sample area needs to reach a minimum number of completions. A completion is when the outcome is either a sale or a refusal to sell. When the minimum isn't reached, supplemental sample is needed. Supplemental sample is additional sample issued to ensure a minimum number of completions. Every outlet of the original list must be attempted, and every supplemental outlet received must be attempted. You can't give back the supplemental sample. The supplement is not replacement because nothing is being replaced. We provide additional sample if a minimum number of completions is not obtained. A comprehensive description of supplemental sample for the 2019 survey can be found in Appendix 6 of the manual, which is on pages 39 and 40. Slide 23. The minimum for the clustered areas is 13 completions per cluster. The clustered areas are numbered 101 through 611. We have also set minimums for the random areas. Allegheny's minimum is 70, Delaware is 70, Erie is 60, and Philadelphia is 170 completions. This means that Allegheny, Delaware, Erie, and Philadelphia counties may need to request supplemental sample if they cannot reach the minimums for their respective counties. Slide 24. So, when are you required to request supplemental sample? Take this scenario. You receive 17 outlets for a cluster, as is with all the areas numbered 101 through 611. Suppose the final tally is 2 sales, 8 refusals, 3 does not sells, 1 empty building, and 3 bar not accessible. Therefore, you have a total of 7 non-completions and 10 completions. Do you request supplemental sample? The answer is yes. You need 3 more stores to get to the minimum of 13 completions. So how many supplements do you request? The answer is 3. Do not stop visiting after you obtain 13 completions. You still must attempt every outlet that is provided to you. The same process holds for Allegheny, Delaware, Erie, and Philadelphia. In Allegheny, the original sample is 130 outlets and needs a minimum of 70 completed outlets. So if there are 61 non-completions, that means there are 69 completions, and you will need to request 1 supplement to have 70. In Delaware, the original sample is 110 outlets and needs 70 completions. If there are 45 non-completions, that means that there are 65 completions, and you will need to request 5 supplemental sample to reach 70. If any of the supplementals end up being non-completions, keep requesting until you hit the minimum number of completions. Slide 25. How do you request supplemental sample? You will send an email to me at ntinik@pa.gov. The reason that I prefer email is to keep track of every supplemental sample that is issued. And each request must contain the following information. The subject line should contain the word SUP, S-U-P-P, plus the number of the area being requested. In our example, it reads SUP 609 because the area number is 609, which is also referred to sometimes as ANUM or ANUM. The body of the email should contain, on the first line, the total number of supplemental outlets that is requested. There should be a complete list of every outlet that is ineligible in the area. The sample number for each ineligible in the area, which is also known as SNUM. A 3-letter non-completion abbreviation for each ineligible in the area. The date that the outlet was last visited for each ineligible in the area. And a short, detailed explanation of the non-completion for each ineligible in the area. After the info is received, you'll receive an email from me with an HTML file containing the unique hyperlinks to the electronic collection forms of each supplemental outlet, as well as an updated collection form worksheet for each provided outlet. Figure 15 on page 40 in Appendix 6 of the manual also shows how an email request should look. One important thing to remember, send a separate email for each area and send a new email for subsequent supplemental requests. Do not reply in an email chain for supplementals for an area that has already received supplemental sample. Send a new email with the entire list of all non-completions as it looks in the manual. All requests should go through the primary contractor unless otherwise arranged. The primary contractor needs to be aware of all supplemental sample issued. However, if you are in the field, it is okay to call me to request supplementals, and I will send you the information over the phone. I will provide the address and name of the outlet being provided. For any supplemental issued over the phone, shortly after you will also get the typical email from me with the attachment of the hyperlinks to the electronic collection forms, as well as the updated collection form worksheets to print and fill out when you return to the office. The primary contractor must be informed of any supplemental sample obtained. I will CC the regional primary contractor on all emails with supplemental samples. Next, Barb will talk about the legal forms.
We're on slide 26, and for the Synar survey, there are a few legal forms that are required for completion, and they are attachments in your manual, but we will be sending them out for you to have your adult surveyors and youth fill out, or parents of the youth fill out. So there will be an underage buyer form, so we can make sure the birth date, month, and year is included on that, an underage buyer medical release form, a parent guardian form, designated adult supervisor form, and these forms have been reviewed by our legal office and are current, and we require those to be completed for every adult and individual involved with Synar to make sure they're authorized to participate. And we'll be sending those out, and you can email or scan or fax them back to us at your convenience, so we can get those actually prior to July 1. So we'll have those before the survey starts. And also there'll be a letter of verification that's included in the manual that we'll also send out in email individually. It's the letter that Nathaniel mentioned to keep on you so that if anyone questions you about the survey and your participation that you have a verification from the Department of Health that you're authorized to conduct the survey.
We're on slide 27, and I'm going to talk about the data collection forms. Previously, in the past, data was collected on paper forms and mailed back to us, and then we scanned it into a database. Now the data can be entered directly into the database through your phone, tablet, desktop computer, or a laptop. We have also developed the collection form worksheet, which serves to back up the data by having a hard copy available. You can use the information that you collect on the worksheet to complete the electronic version of the form. The electronic collection form, along with the worksheet, are the primary tools used to capture the Synar survey data. Both forms are required. There are detailed instructions written for downloading the electronic form application, selecting the appropriate form to complete, and submitting all completed forms. It is posted separately on the website and is also contained in Appendix 1 of the manual. To begin, you will need to download the electronic collection form application, which is called Survey 123, from the ArcGIS website. If you have previously downloaded and installed Survey 123 onto your computer, you will need to uninstall and reinstall so that you have the most up-to-date version. Any mobile versions on phones or tablets should automatically update through the App Store, but please make sure that your app is up to date. Survey 123 will need to be downloaded onto any machine that is being used to submit electronic forms. The sample of outlets will be sent by email in an HTML file. This file contains the unique hyperlinks to each individual outlet in an area with the identifying location information already pre-filled. The survey questions have not changed and should be completed in accordance with traditional survey rules. And I know there were a lot of some problems we had last year not being able to use the hyperlinks that were sent in the attachment. I have tested this yesterday, and it worked for me, so hopefully we won't run into any of those problems once you have the updated version of the app. If you are unable to finish inputting the information for an outlet, you can save it to your drafts and return to it later. If you are finished inputting all of the information for an outlet, you can submit it. This will open a dialog prompting you to send the data now or later. If you select Send Later, the survey will be sent to your outbox. The data for the form has not been submitted and will still need to be sent. You can choose this option if you're at a location with a poor cellular connection. If you select Send Now, the survey will be sent to your sent area and the data for the form has been submitted. Please make sure to periodically check your drafts and outbox for any surveys that have not yet been submitted. All surveys for an area should be submitted when they are completed, but they must be submitted by the end of the survey period. Slide 28. Appendix 1, 3, 4, and 5 of the manual provide detailed explanations of all the forms, the data collection forms, associated with the survey. Attachments 1 through 4 provide examples. Slide 29. This is the collection form worksheet. It is an additional tool used to collect survey results. This paper collection form worksheet is required because we need this information to serve as a backup to the electronic version of the collection form. Complete this worksheet with the same care that you completed past report forms. Again, the worksheet collects the exact same information as the electronic version of the form. For an outcome that is either a sale or a refusal, which is a completion, every question except number 3 must be completed. For an outcome that is a non-completion, questions 1, 2, 3, and the notes section must be completed. There is one pre-filled area on the form. It contains the area number, the sample number, the license number, and the outlet location information. The area and sample fields identify the outlet. The license number is a Department of Revenue identifier, and the outlet location information describes where the outlet is located. Question 1, what was the outcome, is the main question on the worksheet. This question must be completed for every outlet. The outcome of the check is recorded here. Mark sale if the youth purchased cigarettes, mark refusal if the youth was refused by the clerk, and mark non-completion for every other outcome. Question 2 is type of retail outlet. You will choose to categorize the location into one of the 12 categories provided. This question must be completed for every worksheet: sales, refusals, and non-completions. Pages 24 through 26 of the instruction manual provide detailed definitions of each category. The definitions are also provided on the cheat sheet, which is found at the end of the instruction manual. Again, only one category can be chosen per outlet. Steve mentioned the category EMP, LOT, PVR, UNL. You must use this category for every non-completion that is an empty building, empty lot, private residence, or unlocatable. Question 3 is the non-completion type, which describes any ineligible outlet. This question is only completed for non-completions. Comments describing the non-completion are required and must be entered in the notes section of the form. Appendix 2, pages 30 through 34 of the instruction manual provide detailed definitions of the non-completion categories. Only one category can be marked. Questions 4, 5, 6, and 7, which are gender of buyer, age of buyer, Hispanic origin, and race of the buyer, must be completed for every sale or refusal. Question 8. Does the outlet serve alcohol for on-site consumption? Describes whether the outlet serves alcohol. If you are not sure, take your best guess. Notice that the question asks for outlets serving alcohol for on-site consumption. This means that beer distributors would require a no, because you cannot consume the alcohol in the outlet. Questions 9, 10, 11, and 12 should be completed according to the definitions on pages 27 and 28 of the manual. Question 13 is gender of the clerk. Usually the adult supervisor, when they go into the outlet, will take note of the clerk's gender. And question 14 is location fields are accurate. It was introduced in 2014 based on feedback obtained from the survey. Check the outlet location section of the form to answer this question. If the name is wrong, go ahead and write that in the notes section. Again, look at page 28 of the instruction manual for more detailed information. Finally, on the form is the notes section. You must use the notes section for all non-completions or to document any noteworthy aspects of the surveyed outlet. The notes section really helps me when I review the forms. The more information you provide, the better. Slide 30. This is the batch control sheet, which is used to keep track of the survey sample. It provides vital information for the report that we give. The list of youth participants must be accurately completed. Each adult participant must provide their email address on this form so that we can send feedback reports at the end of the survey. There's also a question that we ask: if you attended this training call, you would mark yes. In the future, if you listen to the webinar, please make sure that you note yes dash webinar. So everyone on this call will say yes on the form. Appendix 3, which is on pages 35 and 36 of the manual, gives a detailed explanation of the batch control sheet. Slide 31 features the compliance sheet, which is used to document the outcomes for an area's full sample. Appendix 4 on page 37 of the manual provides detailed explanations. Slide 32 is the area accounting form, and it is used to document and keep track of all non-completions. Appendix 5 on page 38 of the manual provides a detailed explanation on the area accounting form. Next, Steve will highlight a few of the training items on slide 33.
Okay, I'm going to highlight a few things from this training. On electronic collection form, the Send Now button must be selected to submit the data. You can temporarily save the form to complete it later by selecting Send Later, but Send Now must eventually be selected for all outlets. The collection form worksheet is required. Due to requests, we changed the form so there's only one outlet per page instead of 3 like we had in the past. There's a specific way to package and mail the survey forms. Pages 17 and 18 of the manual describe the packaging procedures. Mapping must be done before the survey begins. The procedure discussed in the manual on page 6 is only a suggested method, not the only method. You may substitute all other valid methods for mapping. Slide 34. An outlet is not inaccessible because it serves alcohol. Bars and taverns are part of the Synar survey, but may be ineligible for other reasons. A bar cannot be automatically taken out of the sample. Visit the outlet and look for signs, bouncers, or enter the outlet to determine where the cigarettes are sold. Use BNA, bar not accessible, if there is a sign or a bouncer, and provide the wording of the sign in the notes section. Review the outlet categories on pages 25 to 27 of the manual. It's important to classify the outlet correctly. The survey is unannounced and confidential. And please visit the Synar website to familiarize yourself with the survey. It contains a link to the block grant and latest Synar report, which hopefully will be coming. The latest covered survey results, the instruction manual, the training PowerPoint, the training agenda, information on the survey design, and survey results from 2008 until the most recent survey. Detailed explanations are needed for non-completion. Please review Appendix 2 or call Nathaniel before mailing the forms if you're not sure what to put in the notes section. If a sampled outlet isn't in your area, contact Nathaniel immediately so we can get it to the right person. Next slide, 35. Does anyone have any questions? No?
Okay. Okay, if there are no questions at this time, we're really thankful that you were able to join us today. We thank you for your time and all the work you'll put forth for the survey. It's really important, so we really appreciate it. If you have any questions at any time, you can contact the 4 of us. I'll be sending out our contact information so you can have it, and you'll see emails from us in the future with the necessary information you need for the survey. So thank you again for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.